representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And by the special grace of God and the benevolence of my colleague, I chair the Senate Committee on Appropriation. Good afternoon. Yeah, having said that, very distinguished colleague, once again, we have before us the economic team of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably led by the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy. They are here this morning to brief the Senate Committee on Appropriation on the status of the 2024 Appropriation Act and the 2024 Appropriation Bill. 2025 Appropriation Bill. And we must commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is doing so much in trying to reposition the economy of this country. And we can all allude to the fact that the economy is going in the right direction. Yes, not without its own challenges, but as time passes by, we are sure that the economy of this country will be better off from where it were in the past. At least for once, we can be assured that there is no way this country's economy can collapse in any way, because we are really operating a free economy, that we are opening up Nigeria to the entire world. So once again, I want to believe the 2025 appropriation bill before us is showing signs in this direction. And it is on that note, we have decided as a committee to bring the economic team before us this afternoon, to explain to us, one, the current situation of things as affect the economy; two, to discuss about the 2024 Appropriation Act performance; and three, to also introduce to us all that is contained in the 2025 Appropriation Bill. Once again, good afternoon. Honorable Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, we would like to yield the floor to you to start. And if there is, at any point in time, you want any members of your team, because we have here with you the Minister of Budget, the Minister of State for Finance, and the DG Budget, who are all here together for one same singular reason. So we yield the floor to you, and if there is need for you to allow any one of them to add one or two information, then you are free to do that. So please go ahead.
Honorable Minister of State, Finance, the permanent secretaries in the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, the DG Budget Office, the Accountant General of the Federation, the directors in the Ministries of Finance and Budget and Economic Planning, and our other members of our entourage here today. Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair and members of this august committee, for this opportunity to interact with you on the 2025 Appropriation Bill. Mr. Chairman, sir, let me also thank you for your kind and encouraging and supportive words. Indeed, you, as the Senate Committee on Appropriations, indeed the Senate as a whole, and indeed the National Assembly, has played its role in what has been a team effort led by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to implement bold, courageous, and highly necessary macroeconomic reforms, chiefly highlighted by a return to sound monetary policy on the part of central bank and successful fiscal consolidation, which together have been the highlight of the move to change the trajectory of the country from what was then an unsustainable, unsound, and financial trajectory, and a situation where insecurity stalked the land. That is behind us. We are now facing an environment of lower increased reserves, stable foreign exchange rate, lower deficit, lower debt servicing, and we are poised, as we look at the 2025 Appropriation Bill, we are poised to continue in the same positive direction, including increased economic growth, currently steadily moving up from 3.5% per annum. I have my colleagues with me for the specifics, and they have worked very hard on ensuring that we have a budget that is well packaged, well put together, and well structured, and whose financial implications are realistic and realizable. But let me say that having changed the economy of this country, and indeed the society, because Nigeria, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is no longer a place where rent-seeking, where unproductive activity yields huge rewards. There is no such thing as allocation of foreign exchange at below market rates from central bank. There is no such thing again as allocation of the permit to import petroleum products of various sorts, whereby the mere instrument of permission is something that becomes a tradable commodity. And Mr. Chairman and distinguished senators, to further collaboration and cooperation in the direction which we have already embarked upon. No time to rest on the laurels of what has been done so far. And in particular, I would like to draw our attention to the fact that we can be optimistic. The all-important revenue, NNPC, has committed to over 2 million barrels per day. That is a significant jump from around 1.2, 1.3 million barrels per day that Mr. President met. And that is a signal of where the revenue will come from to fund recurrent, to fund capital estimates as will be approved, as will eventually be approved by you. The appropriation bill is before you. The final figures will be a function of your own examination and review. But let us point out that apart from revenue, there is also cost. A naira earned and a naira saved both equal a naira gained. And we have, as part of our MTEF medium-term expenditure framework conversation, highlighted that we would like re-examination of the costs of NNPC, particularly on the production sharing agreements, where NNPC is actually just an agent. So under the PIA, a very substantial amount of funds accrues to them out of the what we call profit oil of that accrues to the government. 30%. We don't think, if you benchmark it internationally, you will find out that that is actually an applicable figure. We think it should be much lower. We'd like your cooperation, and we'd like your input in that direction. Similarly, in terms of the revenue still, there is before you as a National Assembly the proposals of His Excellency Mr. President for improvement in the policy and administration of our tax regime. And there, we look to collaboration, support, and we look to passage of a tax regime, an improved one that benefits all Nigerians. At this point, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, as regards the 49.7 trillion 2025 appropriation bill and the indeed, I would like to say, I would like to say that the 2024 appropriation bill, as amended by your good selves, is in the past. As we know, the all-important capital expenditure has an extra period, has extra time, which it needs. In the process of prioritization, in the process of ensuring that Mr. President's promises are kept, and he said no more broken promises. The prioritization has to be to the workers, has to be to the pensioners, has to be the promises to lenders, both domestic and foreign, in the way of debt service. But we do have the leeway, and we have begun, even today, the Accountant General is here. There are warrants outstanding on capital which are now being met, even as we speak. So on that note, may I turn to perhaps first of all the Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, but particularly the Director of Budget Office, to give us some snippets of the 2024 performance and a broad view of the 2025 appropriation bill, which is before you. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Who goes first? The Minister
of the Economy, in thanking the Chairman and indeed the distinguished senators as well as the National Assembly for all the support which have led to the remarkable achievement that we have witnessed, and to appreciate the comment of the Chairman that indeed the economy is facing the right direction. And a quite often asked question of us is whether our commitment to stay in the course, and certainly with the leadership of Mr. President and your support, we are determined to stay the course. Mr. Chairman, sometimes when we just focus on the figures, which the DG will competently address, it doesn't tell the whole story. About 2 months ago, the World Bank presented the economic outlook on Nigeria, and they noted in the report the significant increase in revenue to GDP ratio between less than 9% to about 11%. And they made the remark that it may look 200% basis point may look small, but countries that have achieved 70 basis points have generally on data done well. And the GDP growth we have witnessed successively of above 3%. Some, you have to compare it to the attempt by European countries among other countries, countries whose revenue to GDP ratio is over 30%. And yet, so with resources available, they have not been able to generate more than 1% growth. So you can contextualize that these courageous and bold measures that we took that have helped us reduce deficit, increase GDP growth, and even a tapering of inflation are being helpful. Just 8 days ago, the coordinating minister led a delegation which included myself to Saudi Arabia. And all the ministers we met, including the Minister of Finance, Economy, Energy, and other officials, they acknowledge that like Saudi Arabia, our leader, Mr. President, have also undertaken bold and courageous measures, and they are determined, eager to support us because they know how difficult those measures are given their own experience. Saudi Arabia in the last 7 years took on fuel subsidies, introduced BAT legislation. They also removed electricity subsidies. So they appreciated what we are doing in Nigeria, what our president is leading, and is being acknowledged. And equally, it is part of the performance of the strategy that today our subnationals are more liquid and they are able to meet their commitments. And even the federal government prioritization and performance of all the initiatives we have put forth, CNG transition, credit, consumer credit, mortgage, student loans fund, as well as the National Agricultural Development Fund, are all supporting the strategy, and we are seeing the benefit. Quite often people see performance 100% near 100 performance on recurrent as if it is not an accomplishment. Yes, it is a mighty accomplishment, especially in a country like ours that was challenged with security. So the ability to fund performance personnel and recurrent expenditure of our military and security services have supported the security effort, which have translated in ability for the economy to pick up economic activity, particularly agricultural production. And as the Honorable Coordinating Minister said, to also meet obligation, particularly the cash transfers and social intervention programs, as well as commitment to labor. And all this have a catalytic role in supporting the developmental spending. That's why, not surprisingly, in addition to the accolades and support we are seeing from all parts of the world, we are able to assess the credit markets in different ways, consistent with confidence in the strategy, in the renewed hope strategy, and in what we are doing. And last but not the least is to also appreciate that we need to still send out a message of unity, of appreciation that a revenue to GDP ratio of less than 20% will continue to disappoint in our ability to meet all our priority areas. That's why the President have set a target of, in the first place, moving it to 18% GDP ratio. But we can't accomplish 18% without the support of all. That's why the tax reforms initiatives, as well as other measures that are embodied in the budget, reduction in the cost of production of NMPC cost of production, are important elements that we need to work together. Already in the medium-term expenditure framework that you approved, the DG budget have brought on board the idea of ensuring that we amend the Petroleum Industry Act to ensure that we reduce the operation cost of NMPC by legislation. So these are things that require collective effort, and under the able leadership of President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the team that have been working very hard under the coordination of the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, we will continue to do our best to ensure that we continue to generate higher levels of growth. Last point, just on this, is that a visiting European Union delegation that I took to Mr. President, we told them of our objective to increase revenue to GDP ratio. The leader of the delegation said to me that we have to do that, because that's why sometimes they are even able to find it difficult to convince some of their citizens, because those citizens are accustomed to their country's tax to GDP ratio being upwards of 40%, and they can't understand why their revenue resources that they take from their citizens can even go elsewhere to support people who are not willing. So this laudable initiative, which has met your approval, I believe will further support the trajectory. With that, I'll call on the DG budget to talk about it.
Humble to the 2025 budget proposal. The year 2025 was certainly an economic turnaround for the country. We were able to, I was reminded, the year 2024 was certainly an economic turnaround. All the legacies that Mr. President had inherited at the inception of his administration, namely an inability to service our obligations, both debt and recurrent expenditure, became a thing of the past. And it is on this laudable platform that the year 2025 budget is premised. Among others, we have an ambitious production output totaling 2,120,000 barrels per day. The exchange rate is fixed at $75. The price is fixed at $75 per barrel. The exchange rate is 1,500, which is almost twice the rate fixed for the previous year. And looking at the federally collectible revenue, we are almost 150% higher. Looking at what prevailed in 2024, which was 20 trillion naira, as against 51.1 trillion naira in 2025. This certainly is premised on achieving an ambitious but highly realizable production figure, coupled with substantial reduction in cost of production, which Mr. President has assured the nation that he would make sure that NPN is able to, to become more efficient in managing upstream costs. We are also doing a lot more on independent, revenue, in particular dividends from oil and gas, which was 1.5 trillion naira in 2024 and 4.7 trillion naira in 2025. We're also expecting a lot by way of dividends which didn't crystallize from NNPC. We had projected 923 billion naira, but we are still expecting reconciliation work is ongoing. Meanwhile, we really haven't received much from NNPC from July, August, September, October, and November. The fact that we have been able to discharge our obligations speaks to the efforts of Mr. President to tap, as the honorable ministers mentioned earlier, non-oil revenues. And this is a trend that appears to be sustainable and also expandable. So the federal government, takes from the main pool, which is the federation account after the application of first line charges, at 54.6 trillion naira in 2025, which again is more than twice what had prevailed in 2024 at 23.9 trillion naira. So a key expenditure component is actually statutory transfers that are almost 2.5 times what we had in 2024. And this is because of the incremental effect of new regional development commissions that the National Assembly created, namely Southeast States Development Commission, Southeast Development Commission, Northwest Development Commission, Southwest Development Commission, alongside other statutory transfers totaling 4.4 trillion naira. We also have to continue to discharge our obligation as an honorable country by way of attending to debt servicing, which is taking almost 16 trillion naira in the new year as proposed to the National Assembly. So on the overall, we have a budget that on the surface appears to be ambitious. Ambitious because all the figures have actually doubled, but this speaks to one, a higher exchange rate, and two, a higher production output, as well as a determination on the part of the federal government to ensure that the national oil company becomes a lot more cost efficient in reining in costs, so that what is saved becomes revenue that can be spent to increase capital expenditure and by extension capital accumulation and economic growth.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleague. In terms of the direction in which it is going, they have also been able to allude to the fact that yes, it might be a little bit of a challenge in some areas, but the fact still remains that the economy is going in the right direction. Also, they have been able to also brief us about their take on the performance of 2024 budget, which include 100 performance in the area of recurrent expenditure. And in the area of capital, the Honorable Minister have also mentioned, among other things, that as he speaks, the capital releases are currently going on, especially for those whose warrant is available. The releases has commenced as we speak, and that will remain the trend since the budget has been extended to 30th of June of 2025. That by the grace of God, 2024 budget will perform at 100% the capital element of it. And also, the Honorable Minister of Budget has also speak in the same direction with the Coordinating Minister of the Economy regarding the performance of the budget, and also that in a challenging economic like ours, that there is an achievement if our recurrent expenditure is performing at 100%, laying emphasis on the security challenges confronting us and other sundry issues that we are challenged with. And the DG budget also informed us about the ambitious budget which we have, also saying that the figures has already doubled, and that they are they are not leaving any stone behind untouched to ensure that this budget is a reality, and that we will continue in this trend to ensure that we put Nigeria permanently on the path of growth with this ambitious budget of 2025. All these and more is what the Coordinating Minister and his economic team has briefed this distinguished committee. So, distinguished colleagues, if we now have question, clarification to be sought from all that we have heard, the floor is now open. I start with Senator Ningi, then I come back to Senator Mukala Abiru for his clarification. Senator Ningi, you have the floor, please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'm fine. And then in 2025, you also, last one, you also recall, Mr. Chairman, we extended the performance of the budget up to 20 to bring to board, to bear to the economy of this country. Some of these things have not been actually addressed, especially working with the figures. It is important to clearly talk on the figures so that we carry it along to our committee. I so submit.
My comments will be around I'll start with the revenue performance, which in truth, taken from 2023, I think that has gradually been improving. And of course, in 2024, I also recall that as at the time we had the first session with the economic management team, the position as at the third quarter would also showed a lot of improvement in revenue accretion. So I commend the economic team and of course the government for that performance. But one thing that came out as at the third quarter, which I want to bring up again, is that in as much as the revenues are actually improving, but the independent revenues of the GOEs was very dismal. I was hoping that by now, which is January, we will hear how well they have performed, whether there has been any improvement. Because my recollection, even as at that time, what I recollect is the fact that even NLNG, the dividends that was meant to have come in, didn't come in as at that time. So I need a confirmation whether it has come in now, and how well are those GOEs performing, and if they are performing optimally, what are the plans so that we can also use that to enhance the revenue trajectory. That is one. The second point I would have loved to raise, I think my colleague raised it, which has to do that when we claim that we have improved revenues and we have done fairly well with some of the debts that we plan to raise in the 2024 Appropriation Act. Now, one will now wonder that where exactly are we, or how well have we fared with all the capital releases, which I think was raised by my distinguished Senator Ningi. And I think it's very, very important. We know and we have heard that the recurrent expenditure is doing fairly well. But the capital expenditure, which is the real engine of growth for the economy, where are we and what are the plans for us to wrap it up? Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. My name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. Well, my question is related to what distinguished Senator Ningi asked. There is a school of thought to the effect that one of the reasons that constituted a cog in the wheel of the successful implementation of the capital component of the budget is the introduction of what is called the bottom-top approach that was introduced by the present administration that has concentrated issues of payment and processing in the office of the Accountant General, as opposed to a situation that is obtainable before, where the ministries, departments, and agencies process and pay. But now it is concentrated in the office of the Accountant General, and it has brought a lot of bureaucratic red tape and bottlenecks in the process of implementation. And it has also, according to that school of thought, breeded a lot of corruption because of the over-concentration of those the power to release in the office of the Accountant General. I think there is a need to have a second look of that policy of bottom-top approach with a view to bringing about the implementation of the capital aspect of the budget that has the effect of directly bringing the dividends of democracy to the vast majority of our people. Thank you.
Okay, now before...
First of all, I want to thank you for the level of elucidation on the part that you still say, as we say in the matter of general principle, that by the extension of the 2024 budget implementation period, it is only fair to say that we are going to be simultaneously implementing two budgets. That whatever was responsible for the inability of the ministry to successfully implement the budget between January and December might impact on the implementation of these two budgets. Today in January, we are trying to do as much as we can to ensure the 2025 budget is passed. But as you can see, we are gradually gravitating towards the old pattern of not being able to start implementation in January and ending in December. It has always been one extension or the other. And I think that this committee and Nigerians require some kind of assurance that at between me and you, you know that once this thing is done, this economy definitely will grow. Our oil production continues to go down. Our revenue from the oil sector continues to go down. And that is why we are looking at other factors that can bring this revenue. We did that in the increment in VAT. Between me and you, you know that that increment definitely brought revenue to work. But it had very serious repercussions on the ordinary person on the street. Because definitely these organizations pass on the bill to the consumer. And here we are now. Mr. President will put intentions again, as indicated in the preface, to reduce the differential between the value of the naira vis-a-vis the dollar. It is no secret anymore that the ordinary person on the street who sells tomato or even apple tells you that the dollar has gone up. And so the price continues to go up. And every day, even with the pronouncement and assurances, we don't see any visible downward trend in the depreciation of the dollar. And so my own question is, can you give this assurance of any remedial or permanent solution to this dwindling fortune of the naira? Because it has wider implications for the economy, even of the individual and of the country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
The senators and the economic team.